Lads, lasses, and the rest of the masses, welcome back to the channel. I'm Mono from Mono CFC, and welcome to another rating Chelsea players video. Today I have every single player that has played a competitive minute for the Chelsea first team, and we're going to go through and give them a rating between A and F. And we've got some non-applicable ones here for players that have played so little minutes that you can't really judge how well they did this season. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying, firstly, these are just my opinions. You can probably will have differing opinions to mine. If you do, post them in the comments down below and we can have a discussion about things. Secondly, I want to mention that I'm going to be basing this off of how I feel the player played, given the circumstances that they played in, right? So, for example, a player that has only played 20 minutes, for example, is going to be judged on that 20 minutes, and it might be skewed because of that. And basically, because I don't want to discredit players for just not playing, in a way. As I said, I've got these all from alphabetical order, and also, as you can probably tell, this is going to be an off-the-cuff video today, as I have a lot of things planned, a lot of different ideas that I'm going to be doing in the off-season, and yeah, so let's start with the first player. This is Josh Kofi Acheampong, and now the only game that he played, he was really, really good for us, genuinely. He looked the part, like 100% the part, and he didn't get very many minutes, which is kind of upsetting. I am going to try and avoid just putting everyone in kind of like the middle box. I think that he was good when we saw him. Obviously, we need to see him a little bit more. But I think for the minutes that we saw him play, I think we can easily, comfortably get a C grade. I'm not going to be putting him in either one of these because I don't think he was too impressive, but there we go. Next up is Benoit Badiashile. Now, he has really come into his own in the last few months, and he's been really, really solid in the back in this new 3-2-5 system. However, I can't excuse the first half of the season where he was utterly abysmal, and for that I'm actually going to also put him in this C column. I don't think he has impressed me enough in these last few months to kind of suggest that he should be in either of the two top boxes. So I'm going to put him here, and as I said, at the end of this I might adjust players, but yeah. Armando Broja is next, and honestly, I'm tempted to put him in one of these boxes. Obviously, he did not play. He only played half the season for us because he went off on loan to Fulham. Didn't really do well at Fulham either. But the entire time he was here, I don't think he was very good either. He scored like one really fluky goal against Middlesbrough, I believe. But apart from that, he didn't really do much. So I'm going to actually put him in E. I just don't think he was very, very good. Obviously, I think that given more faith, given more time, given more I don't know, opportunities, shall I say, maybe he could have gone higher than this, but I don't think he took the opportunities when he was given them. Likewise, we have Mason Burstow. I think Burstow is one of those players where he played a few games for us, but he was utterly awful. And he is a young kid, and he can definitely improve in that regard. Obviously, he went out on loan. I haven't really been following his loan, if I'm being honest. I don't know if he's been doing well or not. But once he was playing over here with a Chelsea shirt on, he was not playing well at all. And yeah, I've been putting him in the bottom box. Next is Moises Caicedo. Now, Moises Caicedo has been one of our best players in these last few months. I would say ever since about January or February, he has been one of our best players in the team. So I would like to put him in A, but I can't excuse the really poor start to the season that he had, so I'm going to be demoting him down to B. Obviously, his first few games were really, really rocky. He never really found his feet, particularly. But now we've seen him kind of slowly grow into the player that we once saw, and I could be very biased here and be like, oh, he's been very good in recent times, so I would put him in A, but I just don't think that he's been as good as the players that I think that I will be putting in here in terms of the entire season. But obviously, if this was just on current form, he would be 100% up here. Next up is Cesare Casadei. Now, I think Cesare Casadei has been a player that, obviously, he was on loan for the first half of the season. He's come back and hasn't had very many appearances. I don't think he's been particularly bad, but I don't think he's been particularly good either. I am going to be putting him lower than Acheampong and Badiashile just because there is one moment that I know in my head that I can think of him not closing down a shot and it leading us to concede and actually lose or draw a game. I believe, I can't remember which game it was, but I remember him doing that, and that's the only moment of his from this season that kind of really stuck out to me. So I'm not going to put him in the average box. I'm putting him slightly below that, but again, he hasn't had very many minutes, and this is based on the minutes that he has played. Leo Castledine is next, and he genuinely has not had enough minutes for me to judge him, so I'm going to be putting him in the not applicable category. I would have really liked to see him get more minutes because he is a very talented boy. We've seen that in the youth team. He only played once this season for the first team, and he didn't really get very many minutes to actually show anything, so there he goes. Next is Trevor Chalobah. Now, as I said, this is based on how much they've played. He has not played at all basically all season, but he's come back into the team now and has been one of our best players. I would argue that he is our best centre back in the team, and for that I'm genuinely going to put him in A, because I think that all the other players have played way more games and he's looked like the most impressive despite his limited minutes. This might get adjusted. I might bump him down to B depending on how many players end up in here. We'll see, but for now I'm going to be putting him in the A box. Ben Chilwell's next, and maybe this is going to be controversial. I think Ben Chilwell, in terms of the quote-unquote regular players that have played, I think he has been arguably our worst ever player in the team this year. He has been so awful. Maybe this is a little harsh. Maybe this is a little harsh on him, I'm not sure. But I just don't think, and obviously there's circumstances surrounding this, with obviously Poch playing him at left wing at times, which was very silly, him obviously struggling with injury and stuff, but every single time he played this season, apart from maybe one game, he was really poor. Yeah, I just don't think that he's... This is the thing which is upsetting, is because I think that he is the more likely player to stay in the summer, but out of our left backs, but genuinely he would be the first one I would decide to sell if it was me, but obviously it's not up to me, but that's my personal opinion anyway. Carney Chukwuemeka's next, and honestly, again, I'm basing this on very limited minutes. He hasn't played this much this season, but every single time he has played this season, he's been one of our best players, genuinely. He is, in the start of the season, when he was firing, he was one of our most creative players. Obviously, that goal against West Ham was really good, but it's also, obviously, he was quite injured for the majority of the time, but every single time he's come back into the team, he's looked really solid. He's looked really silky on the ball. I remember him obviously getting that late winner in the FA, is it the FA Cup, I believe? One of the cups, he got a really late winner and helped us go through. I think that was against Leicester, before Noni Madueke put in the fourth. And yeah, he's just, every single time he's played for us this season, he's looked like one of our best players. It's just a shame that he hasn't really been able to play more. Again, I think that if once we get to the end of this kind of section, I'll probably decide whether to put him down here. But yeah, I think Carney, for the limited amount of minutes he's played, has been one of our best players this season. Levi Colwill's up next, and this is an interesting one. I think he's another player I'm going to be putting into B. I don't think he's been particularly good this season, but I think he's kind of been hard done by the fact that he's been playing left back for the majority of the season. Maybe he goes down into C, actually. I'm going to put him in C for now. He might get bumped up. But I feel like, yeah, I don't think he was as good as we kind of expected him to be, because he was really good at Brighton. I don't think he settled in this team very well, and obviously he got replaced quite swiftly after he got injured, and he never really got back into the team. Very surprised to not see him come on at all in the last few games, because he has been fit and on the bench, but he just hasn't really been used. Obviously with Chalobah coming back into the team and being really good, I don't think he was ever going to get that place back. We'll have to see what happens next season, and obviously with our new manager coming in, whoever that may be at the time, it might be Kieran McKenna is the front runner for that job at the moment. So we'll see whether he likes him. He does like his ball playing centre back, so perhaps that'll be an opportunity for him to get into the team again. Marc Cucurella is next, and as I said with Caicedo, I think he was one of our best. He's been one of our best players since coming back into the team, but I can't excuse the first half of the season where he wasn't very good. So I'm going to be putting him in B. Basically the exact same scenario for both of these. I think these two have been really good in these last few months, but the first, up until basically January, these two were not very good, and that's kind of why I'm putting him in there. Axel Disasi is next, and this is another one which I'm going to be putting him in B. I think he has been one of the scapegoats of this season. I think that he has been so much better than people are giving him credit for. And I think it is genuinely his stature is the reason why people kind of do that, as he looks like quite a a slow type of centre back. He doesn't look like he knows what he's doing half the time. He's a bit like he feels like he would be that type of player, but genuinely this season he's been one of our best centre backs, and he's been one of our most consistent players as well. He has not been out very often. He's been playing basically every minute until he obviously got injured, and he's been really, really solid. Also pitching in with a few goals as well. I remember specifically that there's that really good goal he scored against Middlesbrough, where he basically ran halfway up the pitch from right back and slotted it away. But he scored other important goals as well. Obviously, I think he got the first goal of our campaign against Liverpool. So yeah, I think that he's been pretty good, and I genuinely feel like he's been scapegoated really, really bad this season. Speaking of scapegoats, this is a fun one. Enzo Fernandez. Now, this is really harsh of me. I think I'm going to put him in D, genuinely. I don't think it's his fault that he's been playing badly this season. I don't think he's been very good this season at all. Obviously, is this harsh? I think this is a bit harsh. Maybe I should put him in C. We'll see. Yeah, I think I should put him in C, honestly. I'll put him in C. Because I think this might be a bit harsh, but he has not been good this season, and whether that's down to obviously the position he's been playing, he's been forced into this really horrific left forward position by Poch all season, and I don't think that suits him at all. And hopefully the new manager will actually play him in a good position a little bit deeper in the build up, so he can actually impact play and use his great vision and passing to actually affect games. But let's be real, I'm not going to sugarcoat things. He has not been very, very good this season, and it feels now that we've gone into this new period that as soon as he's come out of the team that we started doing well. Admittedly, as I've said in the past, I don't think his exclusion is the reason why we are doing better now. I think it's more so down to the system, and I feel like he could play in that system. But there's also the caveat we need to remember that he's been playing through injury for 8 months, which is crazy. He's been playing with a pubic hernia, which is probably one of the most uncomfortable hernias you could possibly have, I would imagine. So he's been playing through the pain, playing with injections. So I'm saying this as an objective thing. I don't think his performances were very good this season. I just do not think it's his fault that that's the case, but there we go. Let's go into Conor Gallagher, and I'm going to rip the band-aid off here. He's going straight in A, genuinely. And this is really silly for me to say, because I do think that he's been less than what he could be this season, but in comparison to all other midfielders, I think that he has been the standout player, just because of his consistency here, the fact that he's had to take on the armband because Chilwell and James both got injured. He's really taken that role in his stride. He's been leading by example. He's been always willing to play for the team, play for the club. He's never backed down from any big game or anything like that. And as we've seen with him playing in the pivot, he's been really, really good at that, being that destroyer. And I think it would be in very bad taste for me to not acknowledge how well he's played, considering. And yeah, I feel like I've had my gripes with Gallagher in the past, and you guys know this from my streams and from my Feeling Blues and things like that, that I don't think he's a very good 10, but that's basically my opinion on the position he plays. As an actual player and how well he's played this season, I think he is up here, genuinely. Alfie Gilchrist. Oh, this is a fun one. I'm going to put Alfie Gilchrist in... where should I put him? I feel like I should put him in C, but I don't think he's been up to the level as, say, Fernandez. I'm going to put him in D. I think he's been good when he's kind of been called upon. I don't think he's particularly had any really bad games. I don't think he's particularly had any really good games. Obviously, he scored his first competitive goal for the club this season too, which is a fun moment for him with his family in the crowd. But apart from that, I don't think he's ever going to really get above this. So he was a big source of one of the memes on this channel with the passion session. So I thank you for that, Alfie. But there we go. Next, we've got Michael Golding. He has not played enough for us to judge him. He only played one game off the bench, I believe. We'll move on swiftly from that. Malo Gusto. Malo Gusto is going straight up into A. He has been one of the best performers for us this season. Genuinely been really, really consistent. I don't think he's had... the majority of his games that he had this season were 8 or 9 out of 10s, and I don't think he's really had particularly a bad game. The only real bad moment I can think of for Gusto this season is literally in like the last game he played, where he got beaten by Callum Hudson-Odoi. So apart from that, I don't think he's been particularly terrible, and for the most part he has been that that kind of rock in our defense, and he was a much better defender than we were kind of alluded to at the start of the season. We heard from Lyon fans were saying that he was a very offensive fullback and he wasn't very good at defending, but he has stepped in for Reece James, which is a massive, those are some huge boots to fill, to replace Reece James, especially because he's our captain and because he's basically our most creative player at times, Reece. For him to step into that role and just look so comfortable at such a young age, he was 20 years old when he took that spot, to perform as well as he has this season is incredible, and I think he's going to have a really good career here at Chelsea, and long may it continue. Nicholas Jackson. Now, people are going to get mad at me, but I'm putting him in A. People are going to get mad at me for doing this because he has been a bit inconsistent, but let's be real, he's the first striker that we've had since Diego Costa that's actually looked capable of scoring goals. So we've think of the other strikers that we've had in the meantime, where we've had Morata and Higuain, obviously Broja, things like that, right? He has been so much better than all of them, and his hold-up play, his link-up play, his ability to drag our team out of dangerous situations with his spinning in behind and the running into the channels. I think he's been genuinely one of our best players. Obviously, he's our second top goal scorer under Cole Palmer, and if he was taking the penalties, like a lot of teams do give their penalties to their forwards, he would be in the 20s for goals scored this season. I think it's been a really, really good goal return to get 50. I think he got, in the league at least, he got 15, maybe 16 goals, and they're all non-penalty goals. So really, really good season from Jackson, and he's only going to get better. He's so young. Obviously, we might see him shift into a different position if we bring in a new striker, and I think that would suit him well. But yeah, we'll have to see how well he gets on. But for me, personally, he has just been one of our better players this season. Let's move into Reece James, and I think people are going to be pissed off with me here. I'm going to put James in E, genuinely. I know he's not played very many matches this season. He's only played 10 matches. And he's obviously, there's the one game that everyone talked about where he came on for 10 minutes and he provided the winning goal for us, and things like that. But overall this season, I don't think he's been very good. He's got red carded twice in 10 games, which is really, really stupid, and both of them are really silly, really, really silly red cards. I think that now he's come back from his injury, I really hope next season he can push on, get some more minutes, and actually prove to us why he should be starting over Gusto. Because let's be real, when he came back into the team and we thought, oh, this is great, he's going to be a rock at the back for us, as he usually is, he's going to provide us with those assists and stuff, and then he just gets himself sent off again, and it's just really silly. And maybe this is recency bias saying this, but he's only played, as I said, he's only played 10 games. And despite him creating a lot of chances, I will say he has created a lot of chances from that right side. I think that we largely didn't really mind that he was out because Gusto was so good, and he, as he said, he came back and he hasn't really proven himself. So just for this season, I'm going to be putting him down there. As I said, maybe that's a bit harsh on him. People can go off on me in the comments. I know that's going to happen, but I just don't think he's been particularly good this season when he has actually played, which was not very much in the grand scheme of things. We've got Romeo Lavia now, and he has played one full game, but he has not played enough for me to really make a considered guess on him, I don't believe. So I'm going to be putting him in the non-applicable. Let's hope that he gets over this horrific injury crisis that he keeps having, and we can actually see him play next season. That would be good. One of our most important signings that we made, and he just didn't really play, which is really upsetting to see. Let's move into Ian Maatsen now. Obviously, he's been on loan at Dortmund for ages now, and he's been one of their best players, if not their best player in that time. I think he did not get a very fair shake of the stick from Pochettino for some reason. I know possibly because of his short stature, Pochettino was kind of against him. And because of that, we never really got to see the true Ian Maatsen, and we never really got to see him play as a left back. He was always forced into these weird positions, whether that was at left wing or if it was at right wing. Sometimes he played as a cam for us, which was really weird. And as I said, he didn't really get many chances to actually play for us. But when we did see him, he wasn't very good. Again, I don't think that's his fault particularly, but I'm going to be putting him here just because I don't think that he particularly proved why he should be playing for us whilst he had those opportunities, and he wasn't really, as I said, he wasn't really given the opportunity to do that. But objectively, he didn't play very well this season for Chelsea. Noni Madueke is next, and I think he has had an up and down season for us. I think he's another player that I'm going to be putting into this C box, because I think he's really come into his own in these last few these last few matches, but obviously I'm basing it on the whole season, and obviously he got disciplined and taken out of the team for certain things, and he kind of never really took that right wing spot. And obviously because Cole Palmer's been playing the majority of the time, he hasn't really had the opportunity to actually play in that right wing spot up until recently, so maybe that's affecting him. But I don't think he's really pushed on from what he was doing last season. I feel like last season he ended the season so well, and we thought that he was going to come into this season with a bang, and he didn't really do that. Neither of our wingers really did that, and to be honest, I think there's basically most of our attackers didn't really show up this season. Madueke showed up a little bit more than one of them, who I'll get onto in a little bit, and he was a little bit worse than another, which I'll get onto later as well. Alex Matos is another one. I don't think we saw enough of him to really actually see how good he can play. He did play one game, but not enough for us to really go. Mykhailo Mudryk. Now this is sad, because I'm going to be putting him in D, and simply because I don't think he was as good as Madueke. Obviously, we've seen him play in numerous different positions this season. He played as a 10, and he looks really good in the 10, and we've seen him play on the wing. He hasn't really he hasn't really impressed me this season much, and I feel like he's got a lot more to give, and he is slowly getting better and improving in certain regards. I think he's especially taken to this new system that we've been playing in recent months, but I just don't think overall he's had a very good season. Much better season than the season he had before, mind. Let's not discredit him for that. It's definitely better than what he was doing, but I just still don't think it was very good in general. So I'm going to be putting him in this smack bang in the middle. Christopher Nkunku. Now, this is a fun one. I'm going to be putting Christopher Nkunku in A. And again, same reason as Carly Chukwuemeka, is that he's had very, very limited minutes. He's only played 419 minutes of football, and he has outperformed a lot of players in the league just in terms of goals scored. Despite that, I think that he's been really clutch off the bench in a way of he's actually come off the bench to score a few times. Obviously, he scored the winner a few games ago. I've completely forgotten what team it was against, but he scored the winner from obviously Gusto's cross. And as I said, anytime he's come off the bench, he's just looked a class above any of the other players, and he looks like that player we kind of wanted to see. Obviously, we got really kind of upset this season by not being able to see him enough, but he's really he's been able to prove that in the limited amount of time he's actually played on the pitch that he is one of our best players, despite literally not playing the majority of the season with 2 massive injury problems. I think next season, if he can stay fit, he's definitely going to get into those top echelons of attacking players. And as I said, this is all just based off of, in context of how many minutes these players have got. So I think in terms of him, actually, what he's actually shown us, I think that he's been one of our better players. But obviously, he could probably get a bit more. Maybe I should put him lower. A lot of these players I think could probably be in this B, but I'm going to put him here. I'll adjust it at the end if I feel like it's necessary. Next up is Cole Palmer, and genuinely I could have an entirely different section just for him. I think he's been by far and away our best player. He's been by far and away the best player in the league this season, in my opinion. I don't know why Foden won the player of the season. I think they literally only gave Cole Palmer the young player of the season so they could give Foden that award, if I'm being honest, because I didn't think they would give him both. They didn't want to give Palmer both. Let's be real, he has been the best player in the Premier League this season, scoring the most goal contributions out of anyone in the league, so there's that. And I know people will talk about the penalties and stuff, but you can only score what you're given. People will say, oh, he scored loads of penalties, but it's like, what, do you expect him to just miss the penalties? No, of course he's going to score them, isn't he? But not only just his goal contributions, just the fact that we have been able to rely on him so much, and he's been so consistent. He came into the team, and this is his first full season in the Premier League, basically, at such a young age. He's come in his early 20s, and he's just completely overtaken this team and said to every single other player in this team, I'm the best player in this squad, deal with it. And I think it's taken a lot of guile, a lot of, in a way, arrogance, a very good arrogance for him to do that. I can't really say more about him. He's just been by far our best player, and he's got to be at the top of this list. He's been our best player, and I hope next season he gets to continue that, and I hope this isn't just a massive purple patch. which I don't think it will be. He is a very talented boy, obviously one of our most creative players, but also being able to really take a hold of games. And that's something we haven't really had for a while, is that Eden Hazard-esque player who can just take the ball and say, screw it, I'm winning this game for us. And he's been that player for us this season, despite how poor we have been in the early stages of the season. I think that he was still performing really well in those bad stages, and he was kind of being let down by everyone else. And now, obviously, in these recent months where we've been really, really good, he's still been our best player, despite everyone else also being good. So there we go. Next, we've got Georgia Petrovic, and to be honest, I'm going to give him a B grade. I think he's come in to this team, and he probably wasn't expecting to be the number one this season, with Sanchez being in the team and him being bought from the MLS. And I think that for him to step up after Sanchez's injury and be so good in that role that Pochettino decided to never play Sanchez ever again, pretty much. Obviously, the one moment that really sticks out to me of Petrovic's is him winning us a penalty shootout with a save in one of the penalty shootouts that we went through this season, and helping us get through there. I believe that was against Newcastle, if I remember rightly. It's so long ago, my brain's not good enough for holding the memories. But overall, I think he's been really, really good, and for the price that we paid for him, I think that he has been one of our most steady performers. And yeah, he has to get into one of these boxes. I don't think he's been as impressive enough to be in A, and there has been some moments where he's been a bit shaky at times, so I wouldn't put him in the top box, but he's definitely been good enough to get into this box for me. We have Pochettino here. I'm actually going to leave him until last. I'll talk about him in a little bit later. Speaking of Sanchez, here he is next, and let's be honest, I don't think Sanchez has been very good this season. He hasn't played very much. But he's been very, very mediocre at times when we have seen him. I'm going to be putting him in D. I think we've seen some good moments from him, but some absolute howler moments. I think that, for example, the Arsenal game is genuinely all his fault. If we don't concede that first goal to Rice, we very comfortably win that game. But him passing it straight to Rice and kind of just letting them back into the game really screwed us over in that regard. You can't be making those mistakes as a goalie, really. I don't think Petrovic has ever really made one of those mistakes. I can't recall anyway. So there we go. Thiago Silva. Now, man, this is really sad because obviously he's not going to play for our club anymore, and I don't want to badmouth him at all. I don't think he has been particularly good this season. I think that a lot of our defensive performances where we've conceded goals have been his fault. He has been at the mercy of a lot of errors leading to goal stats. But overall, I think he has been decent enough for me to put him in C. I'm not going to be putting him any higher than this. I don't think he's been as good as Disasi overall this season. I don't think he's been obviously one of our top performers. I don't think that's been a thing. In the recent times, in the recent months, he has been very, very good for us. I won't discredit that, but as I said, over the whole season, I don't think he's been particularly good. As I said, I can think of at least 6 moments from this season where he has made an individual error that has directly led to a goal. One in particular being being against one of our last opponents, Nottingham Forest. I remember specifically him getting megged by Taiwo Awoniyi for Elanga to score. So there's just multiple moments of that where he's done that. Obviously, maybe he's not been helped out by the system that Poch was playing at the time, and this new system has helped him a lot more. But as I said, as an overall season, I think he had a pretty average season for him, so I'll be putting him in C. Raheem Sterling. Now, God, this might be controversial. I think he's been pretty bad for us overall this season, but he is the winger that we have, other than Palmer, excluding Palmer. He is the winger that has scored the most goals for us this season. So I kind of want to put him above Mudryk and Madueke into the B slot, but I'm just going to put him in C2. I think he's been relatively average this season. He's had some good games. He's had some absolute howler games, so I'll put him middle of the pack, and I think he's been pretty much on par with Madueke in terms of scoring goals. Obviously, very recently he came off the bench to score for us and equalise, which is a good goal contribution for him. Scoring in big moments is a thing that we need from our wingers, so there we go. Next is Jimmy Toriainen, who again only played 1 game and didn't really get to impress very much this season, which is kind of upsetting. I think he's the type of profile of midfielder that Pochettino has been asking for all season. He's saying we don't have enough height or size and power in our midfield. Well, he is a very powerful, very big centre mid, and he never really used him, so that's his loss. Speaking of big and tall centre mids, we've got Leslie Ugochukwu. Now, I'm going to be putting Ugochukwu in one of the 2 middle ones. I think putting him in D is safe. I think he's been, for the limited amount of minutes he's played, obviously he hasn't played that much this season because he's been injured. I think that he is a very decent rotational player for us in the times that we've been able to see him. The reason why I'm going to be putting him in the lower of the two average boxes is simply because there is a moment that I can think of him having an absolute howler of a game, and that was the Newcastle game back really early in the season. I think he had one of the worst games for a midfielder ever. I think that was the debut of Lewis Miley, who was 17 at the time, and he completely rang rings around him the entire game. And I think that, like, it's those moments that is just going to slightly push you down a little bit further down. As I said, he hasn't had very many minutes. In the few minutes that he has played, he's been relatively decent, but yeah, there we go. Next up, and the final player that we have here is David Washington, and David Washington has not really had a chance to impress this season. He's been demoted down into the youth team, and he's been very, very good for the youth team in truth, but he has played a few appearances off of the bench and one start, I believe, maybe, for us this season, and he didn't really look too impressive. I'm not going to put him in F because I don't think he was bad. I think he's going to be in one of these boxes here. I think he'll be in E. There is one moment I remember specifically of him missing an absolute sitter, which was really upsetting because it was really early on in the season. He came on as a substitute and he almost scored a goal. But yeah, I'll put him in E. This is, by law of averages, this has actually kind of worked out pretty well. Now I'm going to reassess this. I'll talk about Poch in a second. Obviously, I'm going to put Poch in. I think putting Poch in the middle box is pretty safe. I'm going to be putting him in D, which is the middle box, because let's be honest, the first half of the season was utterly atrocious, and he could be put in F for it. The second half of the season was, or I say the second half of the season. Second half of the season was about a B for me. Obviously, the last 5 weeks was an A, but the actual, if we're saying from up to January, I think he was down in F, and from January onwards, I think he's been a B. So if we average that out and put them in the middle, it'll go in D. I think that he has been, obviously he's gone now, so I can talk about this. I think that he's been a decent manager for us in terms of getting us into Europe. That is something that was an objective of ours, was to get back into Europe. So let's say thank you for him for that. But let's be real, he has not been a good manager for the majority of this season. He has been utterly abysmal. He has had no idea how to set up our team defensively. We've conceded the most amount of goals in our history, I think, this season. Obviously, we've improved offensively, and people always say, oh, look, we scored so many more goals than last season. Yeah, but we did also have Cole Palmer in our side and Jackson in our side and things like that. We actually got decent attackers this time when we didn't have Mason Mount and Kai Havertz stinking up our team in the attack. So I think that's more so because of the recruitment that we have made and the just ludicrous amount of money that we've spent, rather than him actually improving us in that regard. I think it's been a lot of individual performances that have gotten us our goals this season. I don't think it's been very tactical. Obviously, he's shown some tactical nuance in recent times with this new 3-2-5 system, but his abandonment of that system earlier in the season is part of the reason why we've done so terribly this season, let's be real. And his ability to affect games in the middle of games has been really suspect. We've seen a lot of second half performances from our club that have just completely gone down the drain. Like, his team talk has just not helped them at all, or has completely done the opposite of actually helping them. It's actually made them worse. He's played defensively at times when he needed to go forward. He's played forward sometimes when he needs to play defensively, things like that. Obviously, his substitutions have been a bit suspect too. I've always wondered why he's been leaving certain players on the bench, not playing them. He's been making his substitutions really, really late so they can't affect the game, things like that. I don't think overall he's had a very good season for us, but just because that he has gotten us into Europe and that was one of our targets, I am bumping him up from F up to D. That's pretty much it. Now that's every single player and manager, and I'm going to just quickly go through and adjust to see if I can find any players I think need to go down a little bit here. I think maybe I could put a Chempong down. I think that would be harsh to put him there. You know what, I put him there really early. I think he could actually go down here. Genuinely. Like, I'm not really sure in that regard. This seems pretty good to me. I feel like there needs to be less players in A, if I'm being honest. I think maybe I can bump. I think maybe I should bump Nkunku and Chukwuemeka into B. I think that makes sense for us, honestly. And considering the you know what, considering the other players that are in this box, I'm actually going to put Mudryk in C. I think that actually makes the law of averages work out pretty well. Ironically, I think that's pretty. Putting all of our wingers that are kind of underperforming in the same box, I think is fine. All of these are kind of youth players that have played decently well, but not too well. Yeah. Put Chilwell down here. Maybe that is really harsh on Chilwell, but I genuinely think he's been our worst in terms of like. I can excuse other players because they're like young and inexperienced and haven't played very many times. He isn't young or inexperienced and played very few times, and he's genuinely been our worst first team player this season, I would argue. But yeah, that is my tier list for today. That's my player rankings. If I have missed anyone, I don't think I have. I'm pretty sure I've got everyone that has played competitive minute for us this season in here. If I have missed anyone, let me know down in the comments down below, and I'll give my rating on them in the comments. If you want to do this tier list yourself, I will leave a link to it in the description. And yeah, as I said, if you've got a differing opinion than mine, leave it down in the comments as well, and we can have a nice discussion about it. We'll have to wait and see whether any of these players can improve this rating for next season, but if you can't wait until then, YouTube reckons you'll enjoy one of these two videos on screen in the meantime. Thank you guys so much for watching as ever, and remember, in the rain or in the dry, keep that blue flag flying high. Come on, you Blues!